And Allophyles gathered all their armies at Aphek, and Israel encamped in Eindor, which is in Jezreel. And satraps of Allophyles were passing on by hundreds and by thousands. And David and his men were passing on in the rear with Anchus. And the satraps of the Allophyles said, Who are these who pass by? And Anchus said to the commanders of the Allophyles, Is this not David, the slave of King Saul of Israel? He has been with us for days. This is the 2nd year, and from the day he fell in with me, I have found no fault in him, and until this day. And the commanders of the Allophyles were distressed by him, and said to him, Return the man to his place, there where you have assigned him, and let him not go with us to the battle, and let him not be a plotter against the camp. And by what means could this fellow reconcile himself to his Lord? Would it not be with the heads of those men? Is this not David, for whom they began with dances, saying, Saul has killed amongst his thousands, and David amongst his 10,000s? And Anchus called David and said to him, The Lord lives, that you and your coming in and your going out with me in the camp are right and good in my eyes, and that I have not found evil against you, from the day you have come to me until the present day. And in the eyes of the satraps you are not good. And now go back, and go in peace, and you shall not do evil in the eyes of the satraps of the Allophyles. And David said to Anchus, What have I done to you? And what did you find in your slave from the day I was before you even until this day, that I shall not go to fight the enemies of my lord the king? And Anchus replied to David, I know that you are good in my eyes, but the satraps of the Allophyles say, He shall not go up with us to battle. And now be early in the morning, you and the servants of your lord who came with you, and go to the place, there where I appointed you, and do not place a pestilent thought in your heart, for you are good before me, and start early on the way, and let there be light upon you, and go. And David was early to depart, he and his men, and to guard the land of the Allophyles, and the Allophyles went up to fight against Israel. And it happened, when David and his men entered into Sekilach on the 3rd day, that Amalek had made a raid on the south and on Sekilach, and had struck Sekilach and burned it with fire. And with respect to the women and all that was in it, from small up to great, they did not put to death man or woman, but took them captive and went on their way. And David came and his men to the city, and behold, it had been burned with fire, but their wives and their sons and their daughters taken captive. And David raised and his men their voice, and they wept until they had no more strength left to weep. And both David's wives were taken captive, Achinum the Jezreelite, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was in great pain, each for his sons and for his daughters, and David was strengthened in the Lord his God. And David said to the priest, Abiathar, son of Achimelech, Bring the ephod. And David inquired through the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this Gedor? Shall I overtake them? And he said to him, Pursue, for overtaking you shall overtake, and delivering you shall deliver. And David went out, he and the 600 men with him, and they came to Wadi Bosor, and the reserve stayed. And he pursued with 400 men, but 200 stayed behind, who stayed on the other side of Wadi Bosor. And in the open country they found an Egyptian man, and they took him and brought him to David in the open country. And they gave him bread, and he ate, and they gave him water to drink, and they gave him a piece of fig cake, and he ate, and his spirit revived in him, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, Whose are you, and where are you from? And the Egyptian lad said, I am a slave of an Amalekite man, and my master left me behind because I fell sick 3 days ago. And we had made a raid on the south of Colthi, and on the parts of Judea, and on the south of Kelub, and we burned Sekilach with fire. And David said to him, Will you take me down to this Gedor? And he said, Do swear to me by God, that you will not put me to death, and not hand me over into the hands of my master, and I will take you down to this Gedor. And he took him down there, and behold, they were spread out over the face of all the ground, eating and drinking, and celebrating a feast with all the great spoils they took, from the land of Allophyles, and from the land of Judah. And David came upon them, and smote them from morning star till late at night, and on the morrow, and not a man of them escaped, except 400 lads, who had mounted on camels and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites took, and delivered both his wives. And nothing was amiss with them, from small up to great, and from the spoils even up to sons and daughters, and up to all the things that they took of theirs. David brought back all the things. And David took all the flocks and herds, and led them away ahead of the spoils. And of those spoils it was being said, These are David's spoils. And David came to the 200 men, who had been too exhausted to go after David, and he had caused them to sit at Wadi Bosor. And they went out to meet David, and to meet the people who were with him. And David drew near to the people, and they asked him the matters for peace. And every pestilent and bad fellow among them, the warriors, who had gone with David, answered and said, Because they did not pursue together with us, we will not give them any of the spoils that we have recovered, except let each take his wife and his children and leave. And David said, You shall not do so after the Lord delivered them to us and guarded us. And the Lord delivered the Skedur that came against us into our hands. And who will listen to these your words? For they are not inferior to you, because according to the share of the one who goes down into the battle, so shall be the share of the one who stays by the baggage. According to this they shall be divided. And it happened from that day and beyond, that it was for an ordinance and for a statute for Israel until today. And David came to Sekelac, and sent part of the spoils to the elders of Judah and to his fellows, saying, Behold, some of the spoils of the enemies of the Lord. For those in Beth-Saur, and those in Ramah of the south, and those in Jethor, and those in Aroer, and the Amadi, and those in Saphi, and those in Esthi, and those in Geth, and those in Kenan, and those in Saphek, and those in Tinmath, and those in Carmel, and those in the towns of Jerahmeeli, and those in the towns of Kenezi, and those in Jerimoth, and those in Bersabee, and those in Nu, and those in Chebron, and in all the places, there where David crossed, he and his men. And the Allophyles were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Allophyles, and wounded fell on Mount Gelbui. And Allophyles engaged Saul and his sons, and the Allophyles smote Jonathan and Aminadab, and Melchishah sons of Saul. And the battle pressed hard upon Saul, and the darters, the bowmen, found him, and he was wounded in the abdomen. And Saul said to the one who bore his armor, Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and make sport of me. And the one who bore his armor was unwilling, for he feared greatly. And Saul took the sword and fell upon it. And the one who bore his armor saw that Saul had died, and he also fell upon his sword and died with him. And Saul and his 3 sons and the one who bore his armor died together in that day. And the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley, and those beyond the Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul had died, and his sons, and they forsook their towns and fled. And the Allophyles came and settled in them. And it happened on the next day, that the Allophyles came to strip the dead, and they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on the mountains of Gelbui. And they brought him back, and stripped off his armor, and sent them into the land of Allophyles round about, proclaiming the good news to their idols, and to their people. And they put his army in the Astartian, and they fastened his body on the wall of Beth-san. And the inhabitants of Jabes of the Galadites heard what the Allophyles had done to Saul. And every man of might arose and went the whole night, and took the body of Saul, and the body of Jonathan his son from the wall of Beth-san, and brought them to Jabes, and burned them there. And they took and buried their bones under the cultivated ground of Jabes, and fasted 7 days.